So Psalm 30 is where we're going to be at. Let me read this one to you. A psalm. A song at the dedication of the house. A psalm of David. I will extol thee, O Lord, and for you have lifted me up, and have not let my enemies rejoice over me. O Lord my God, I cried to thee for help, and thou didst heal me. O Lord, thou hast brought up my soul from Sheol. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing praise to the Lord, you his godly ones, and give thanks to his holy name. For his anger is but for a moment, his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may last for the night, but the shout of joy comes in the morning. Now as for me, I said in my prosperity, I will never be moved. O Lord, by your favor, you have made my mountain to stand strong. You did hide your face. I was dismayed. To thee, O Lord, I called. To the Lord I made supplication. What profit is there in my blood if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise thee? Will it declare thy faithfulness? Hear, O Lord, and be gracious to me. O Lord, you be my helper. Be thou my helper. Thou hast turned from me my mourning into dancing. Thou hast loosed my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, that my soul may sing praise to thee and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give thanks to thee forever. So we've been going through the Psalms. David is really just pouring out his emotions over various situations. And, I'm not a poet, but there are times that I sit down and I come up with an idea and I just can't contain myself till it's done. And you flesh it out, you write it out, draw it out, whatever it is. Some people are poets, they just write. Some people they make songs or they play instruments, and they just got to get it out of their system. And so at various points here, David would be, sitting on a hillside or on his throne or in his room, and he's like, you know what? God's really been good. And he just starts writing stuff down. So this psalm is a song at the dedication of the house of David. It could be a song that was written for the house of God in Jerusalem. Now you got to remember, David wanted to build the house of God. But God told him, you're a man of war. It's not for you to build the house. Your son will build the house. And so when Solomon went to build the house, there's no indication that David he would have been dead at that point perhaps, because it took probably 14 years to build it. He wrote this song for it. He wrote a song for the preparation of it. Solomon did not have to collect anything to build the house. David had collected all of it for Solomon to build that house. And so David's heart was such, he wanted to build the house of God. And he had everything ready to build the house of God. He even had a song written for the dedication of the house of God. But he himself did not get to partake in that other than the preparation. I want you to know that the preparation is the hardest part. All Solomon had to do was walk into the kingdom. All he had to do was show up. God blessed him in every way. He made wise choices, mostly at the beginning of his reign, and then he fell off into idolatry and other things at the end. But when the Lord goes before us and he prepares our way, we just walk in smooth paths. That's what David was praying in Psalm 23. And now here he is. He's lifting up his voice. He says, God, I will extol you. I will lift you up. For you have lifted me up. He's going to lift up God's name because God lifted him up. I was reading through the 1st and 2nd Peter. I've been doing that devotion every morning. And, the Bible says there that the Lord is opposed to the proud. But if we humble ourselves in the sight of the Lord, in his time he'll lift us up. So David accepted God's message. Yes, David, I know you love me. I know you want to build a house, but it's not going to be you. And David in humility recognized that, you know what, God's word's final, and he prepared anyways. He could have threw a fit and said, well, fine, if I can't do it, let them figure it out. And that would be our normal human response. But David lifted up the Lord because God lifted him up in the proper time. I will extol thee, O Lord, for you have lifted me up and have not let my enemies rejoice over me. Time after time, up to this point, we've heard David say, don't let my enemies rejoice over me. Don't let my enemies conquer me. And that was David's constant prayer. Don't let my enemies be able to say they've won. Because David was hoping in the Lord, trusting in the Lord. And he recognized, God, you lifted me up by not letting my enemies rejoice over me. The Bible says that if we honor the Lord, he'll make even our enemies be at peace with us. So, this is what David was fleshing out. He was saying, I recognize this. Oh Lord my God, I cried to thee for help, and you did heal me. David was just a man like us. He had problems just like us. He had situations just like us that sometimes he made good decisions, sometimes he made horrible decisions. But when he cried to the Lord for help, the Lord heard him. The Lord healed him. The Lord provided for what he needed. We look at some of these people in the Bible, and yeah, we can lift them up for their faith and the good things that they did, but they were human just like us. There's no difference between us and these people you read about. They're just flesh and blood like you and me. And they had to live their life just like you and me. And like David, we can do the same. We can come to the Lord in our time of help. Do you have trouble? Come to the Lord. Do you need help? Come to the Lord. Do you need a touch of His Spirit? Come to the Lord. This isn't just a religious speech. This is truth. I mean, it's our life. And we need to cling to the Lord. When we have times of difficulty, we need to come to Him. Oh Lord, you have brought up my soul from Sheol, the place of the dead. Yeah, but sure there were times when David was like, I'm about to die here. Saul's after him, somebody else is after him. But the Lord preserved him. He didn't have to worry about, he was like, I'm about to die here, And the Lord preserved his soul from Sheol. He didn't have to go, he didn't die. You've kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. And David was recognizing that he was where he was at only because of the grace of God. Were it not for the Lord, he would have already been dead. Think about all the times that Saul tried to spear through him. He would have already been gone. And there were other enemies too. It wasn't just Saul. He had plenty of them. And so in response to that, he says, sing praise to the Lord, his godly ones. Give thanks to his holy name. For his anger is but for a moment. What's he referring to? Think about all the mistakes and outright sin David committed. The anger of the Lord is but for a moment. If we'll repent and confess and come to him, it's for a moment. But his favor is for a lifetime. So when the Lord chastens us for our sins, it's just for a moment. And he's wanting to draw us back to himself so that we can enjoy his favor for our lifetime. Not just for this physical life here, but for the lifetime of eternity. The Lord chastens those he loves. His anger is but for a moment. His favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may last for the night. And David wept a lot over his sin. Once it was pointed out to him, he wept. And maybe you've wept too. There have been times I've cried. It may last for a night, a week, a month, a year. But a shout of joy comes in the morning. When the Lord shows up and heals, when the Lord shows up and preserves, when the Lord shows up and provides, we can look at all that and man, it was rough. It was difficult to go through that. And we can give testimony about how hard that was. But we can go, but the Lord showed up and now we can rejoice. And when God does that, it's our response is to sing praises to his name. That's how we should respond. He says, but as for me, I said in my prosperity, I will never be moved. O Lord, by your favor, you have made my mountain to stand. You can interpret this two ways. You can say that David was saying, in my prosperity, when things were good, he was saying, I'm not going to be moved. Then the Lord showed up, hid his face. He was dismayed. Why would God hide his face in our prosperity? Might be because we forgot him. Might be because in our prosperity we decided we didn't need the Lord anymore. And the Lord hides his face for a moment, for a while, and we sense that we don't feel the presence of God anymore. And that's actually a blessing from the Lord when we're in that situation. If you ever get to the point where you're like, I just don't feel God's presence, that's a blessing. Because he's calling you back to himself. He's like, look, I'm not the one who moved. You went off. But you need to return to me. Come to me. I'm here. You're doing your thing. I'm not necessarily answering. I'm here, but you're just doing your thing and your prosperity and you forgot about it. So that may be what David is referring to. And at that point, David cries to the Lord, makes a supplication, and he cries out, what profit is there if I die, basically? If I die, who's going to praise you? If we die, there are many others who will praise the Lord. That's a hard truth to grasp. But at the same time, it's like Paul saying, my desire is to depart and be with the Lord. And yet I know, for your sake, it's better that I stay. We had a pastor friend of ours that helped us through a lot of difficult times. I think he died. Prayed for him. He was revived. He lived on for a number of years, but I think about what would have been the case. What would we have lost in the intermediary time had he not been there to help? And that's a difficult question to look at and go, okay, what are the possibilities? What if is always you just never know. But the Lord blesses in that way, and sometimes He lets someone stay longer so that they can be a blessing to others. It may be difficulty and pain for them, but there's ministry. That's the reason why the Lord has left us here so far. It's because He wants us to do some things for Him. He's not finished yet. And even David, he got to a point where he was so cold and lonely, they had to basically find someone who could keep his body warm, literally. And he was so old, and yet the Lord wasn't done yet with him. But let's go back to that. Now, as for me, I said in my prosperity, I will never be moved. If David was saying in his physical prosperity and he forgot the Lord, he'll never be moved, then the Lord showed up and said, okay, well, I'm just going to withdraw for a moment. All right, so we went down that line. But what if David was saying, in my prosperity, in the Lord, I will not be moved? Well, then, if that's the case, then David would say, by your favor, you have made my mountain to stand. I'm prosperous only because the Lord has blessed. We're not talking about wealth. We're talking about true wealth that comes from the Lord, not money, not silver and gold, not fame, fortune, and renown. All of that doesn't matter. Even when the Lord would hide His face, we can cry to Him and the Lord will hear us because He's our strength. He's our solid foundation. In our prosperity, which is the blessing of the Lord, He'll make us to stand. So I think either interpretation, you could look at that and say, okay, look, the Lord is our stronghold. The Lord is where we should stand. The Lord is the one that we can cling to. But really, what profit is there if we die? Well, let's turn this around and say, if the world would come against us and threaten us with our very life, would you stand firm? We'd like to say that we would. And it's my hope and desire and goal to encourage and strengthen you so that, God forbid, that should happen, you would stand strong. Because the persecution or suffering that we would face as followers of God is not something new. It's something that every follower of God has faced ever since the beginning. David faced it. Others faced it. And if David can stand strong in the face of possible death, so can we. And we need to be able to cling to the Lord even in that. The dust will praise the Lord. As we return to dust, we'll praise the Lord for our existence. Even the very breath we breathe breathes in and out the name of the Lord as we breathe in and out. It's just one of those neat things about how God's name is pronounced. So he says, hear, O Lord, and be gracious to me. O Lord, be my helper. You have turned for me my mourning into dancing. You have loosed my sackcloth and girded me with gladness. So, if you want to go to dancing, I'm not going to kick you out. Because David danced before the Lord. Now, we want to honor the Lord in that. But, David says, you've turned my mourning into dancing. There are points in time when we are buckled down and covered over with mourning. It's normal, it's natural, it's part of life. We should mourn over our sin. We should mourn over other things, loss of loved ones. But there comes a point where we can turn to the Lord and the Lord puts new strength in our steps. And you know what? The guy who couldn't walk for 38 years, what did he do? I'm sure he danced. And when James and Peter and John went into the temple and the man was sitting there and he couldn't walk, and he's like, look, silver and gold have I none, but what I have I give you. He rise up and walk, and he went off running around dancing. There's a point in time where it's proper and we should be doing it. But if the Lord does some great thing and we go, that was cool, and we don't respond that way, I think there's something wrong with us. Like, God is so good. He's so good to do that for us. So he's turned our mourning into dancing. Loose my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, that my soul may sing praise to thee and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give thanks to thee forever. I hope this encourages you to, in your hard times, come to the Lord. But when the Lord has blessed you and given you the opportunity to share, then don't hold back. Don't be silent. Let the Lord use that for his honor and glory. And not only the strengthening of just you, but the strengthening of others, because we need to hear it. Other people need to see it. We need to shout from the rooftops, look at what the Lord has done. That's how we should respond. That's Psalm 30. So.